Hello, hello.
Well, hello, James. Nice to
Good
see you again.
evening. Good evening. Is that
How-
Northumberland calling?
It certainly is. Lovely, rainy Northumberland on this cosy Tuesday evening. So yeah,
I know all about it. I came through it. Earlier at 110 mile per hour. I didn't stop, but I did hit the rain on the way up, unfortunately, on my way back from London.
Well, I've got to say, it's Tuesday night. I've been looking forward to having our weekly chat once again.
A day
And
late.
actually,
My fault
yeah.
entirely.
Well, we'll get onto that. I think being abandoned for bigger fish, but yeah, we'll get to that. But no, I am. I've been very excited. I think the realization hit this week that not only are people joining us live and on a lovely Monday or Tuesday evening, settling in and listening to us chat, but also joining in, listening on Spotify and YouTube and Amazon and Apple and all of these different streaming services. So yeah, can't knock it, can you?
I'm chuffed to see that because it is that strange thing, isn't it? Turning a live show into a podcast. I'm sure our podcast listeners who listen to us on that format probably think, the pattern's a bit different to a normal podcast. It's not slickly edited. It's not produced in those kind of segments that people are used to. But I think that's quite nice because you're listening to a conversation as it happens naturally as well. And while we have guides, we have a rough kind of guide about what we want to talk about. The conversation kind of flows naturally as well, which is what we're still getting used to 3 episodes in. But I can't believe we're here already, third episode.
Yeah, and it's only going to get better and better, isn't it? So no, I'm definitely enjoying it, and then hopefully everyone else at home's enjoying it. It's just it's something to look forward to. You know what's interesting as well, though. I mean, I've said it a few times. I make little short TikTok videos and Instagram videos. But that like being able to open up that conversation and talk about things and actually being able to explain how you feel about certain subjects without having to cram it into a 60-second video is very, very refreshing for someone like me. And I think actually there's a lot to be said about, just having an open, flowing conversation, and hopefully that's exactly what we're going to have this evening.
Exactly. It's the long form, isn't it, mate? And it's that ability to kind of dig into detail, and you get more than just your 60 seconds to do it. And that's the same for me with the media and with broadcast. While you could be on a show for an hour, if you're on with 4 other people, you're not getting a huge amount of time to dig into detail. And often people will cut you off if it sounds like you're going to be given some kind of protracted, nuanced kind of discussion. So it leads to this clickbaity, kind of people trying to get their points in quickly. So I think this is lovely because it counters that. But also it's just nice because I think we just have a nice time doing it, don't we? We enjoy ourselves. And I think that's the main thing as well, that if people are enjoying themselves making this, we're not forcing it. We're not forcing some kind of content creation. We're just having a chat that we would probably have anyway.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting what you said there about, having a conversation with 4 different people and, getting a certain amount of time. Are you speaking from experience there? Is there something you've been up to
maybe
over the past couple of days?
Maybe. Yeah, I just got back from London a couple of hours ago after being down there specifically for one show, which was the LBC's Cross Question. It's a show I haven't done before. I've never done it before. And I must confess, it's one I don't listen to very often as well. So it was kind of a relatively new format. What you do on Cross Question is a bit like Question Time. There's an audience you take questions from, who send them in. And they field them and they go through them and they field them in real time, right? So the weird thing is Ian Dale, who was kind of a bit of a broadcast legend, albeit quite a conservative one, he's sat in the middle and there's this screen, that he's picking questions from and you can see them. And some of them are videos recorded, some of them are live Zooms. Some of them people are sat right there, and they come up on the screen. Some of them are dreadful. Like I was on, so one of the other panelists was Simon Hall, who is a Tory MP and has been for Dorset, I want to say. I think South Dorset. Has been for years. Very well known on many committees in Westminster and stuff like that. And is it Dorset? Is it? I get that right.
Dorset, I think.
I always make North Dorset. I always mix it up with Dover, which drives people down there insane, of course. But he was getting some flack early on, be like somebody, Sarah, for example, from somewhere, says you shouldn't have Simon Hoare on, he's a disgrace, you know, and like in real time, you're all reacting to it. So it's quite a, you know, while I do callers on other shows, and they're always a bit insane on the likes of Talk and GB News and stuff, but yeah, this was a new experience. But I loved it. Thought it was great. And pleased to see you listening. I was looking to see if maybe you would ask James Matthewson why he's not living up to his responsibilities question.
Yeah, he's got responsibilities at home that he is not keeping to, you know. But no, from what I can gather, basically, for people who don't know, Cross Question is LBC's version of Question Time with more esteemed guests. Really,
Well,
do you know what I mean? Because
listen, I've not been on Question Time, so put it that way, you know.
yeah, no, but I thought you did great. I thought you did really well. And I think if anybody wants to go give that a listen, I think they put it on YouTube, the full episodes,
Yeah,
are they
it's
not?
on YouTube, I think. It's on YouTube, and it's on from last night. It was 8 p.m. when it went out live, so you can watch it back. But it was good, mate. And I was down there, did some other unexpected things while I was there. I was in Westminster in the House of Commons, as usual, when I go down to London, doing some bits and pieces of work stuff and just catching up with people, hearing the latest gossip. And then obviously, I mentioned to you before we went on that I got a little bit of a surprise treat because it was my birthday the other week, and a friend of mine who will remain unnamed and is anonymous for obvious reasons, but works for the Prime Minister, and said that, you know, kind of lured me in with this promise of a photograph at the front door, because I've handed petitions in there before. I've been there with MPs, with campaign groups. Go up to the front door, take a photo of someone else, and off you go. You got to rush out. So I'd never had my photo taken. He said, come and get your photo taken. Stand at the front door, you know, it'll be nice. So I did. And when we got there, went through the street, went through the security, the Iranian march, the pro-Shah, the pro-royalty Iranian march was on just outside. So the police were like quite edgy anyway. We went in, went through, you know, these places have like insane security arrangements, as you can imagine. The doors, even when they're unlocked, are so heavy, you know, to go through into the office where you get scanned. Bit similar to going into Parliament at Portcullis House, and then went up to the door, and then we got the photo, and he says, "Are you going in then?" I said, "What do you mean going in?" He said, Are you going to go in? I've arranged it for you to go in and have a wander around." And we were there for the best part of an hour. It was incredible, mate. I'd never been inside before, so it was incredible.
Yeah, I can only imagine like that. Like my image of Downing Street is like Hugh Grant doing a dance through there, just like
Yeah.
I was half expecting to see. Did you see? Was Keir Starmer in there doing a jig, or I
He
can't
wasn't,
imagine.
unfortunately. I didn't see him
No, that's a
dancing.
shame.
I'm quite pleased about that, though. Quite pleased that I didn't see him dancing. I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm not. If he's listening, I'm sure he's an avid listener of that class. But I don't think he strikes me as somebody with the slickest moves. But I could be wrong. You know, sometimes you don't judge a book by its cover. But it was incredible. I mean, those rooms that you see on there. I was asking while we were going around. My mate's very well versed in the history of the place, and he was telling me, you know, the various kind of historical facts about the different rooms. I was sat in the cabinet room, which was incredible. I mean, to think, you know, and by the way, it's the same chair and the same table that have been there for like over 100 years now. So, you know, all of the people, some of the most influential backsides in British history have sat at that table. Some of the biggest decisions made there, as well, as you can imagine. And the thing that strikes me as well, I think I'm allowed to say this. I think it'll be common knowledge if you Google it, but it's all on the ground floor. Like, I thought the cabinet office would be upstairs somewhere, you know, but it's not. It's all on the ground floor. All that stuff is fairly kind of central around the entrance, and then the rest of it just goes back and back and back, and it is huge.
You've probably spent more time in that cabinet office than Liz Truss, I'd imagine. How long?
Mate, I'm not kidding you. The staircase where all the portraits are, right, for the prime ministers, right? I'm gonna, yeah. I didn't. Obviously, you're not allowed your phone when you go around, so otherwise, I would have definitely got a photo of this. But the staircase is massive. Like, when you see it in things, you always think it's like, I don't know. They probably just show you the final flight of stairs. It's like 7 flights of stairs, and the prime ministers are all from the bottom. You know, there's hundreds of them. like on there, obviously. And I think they're waiting. I think I'm right in saying that it gets put up when you leave. So I think Rishi's one. I think they're waiting on that because they submit them themselves and they're allowed to submit it however they want. So there's all these different styles of photos. They're not uniformed. They're not like the same headshot. Like Tony Blair's, you can imagine. He's like looking off in the distance, and it's like something Alistair Campbell would have had submitted to one of his newspapers back in the day, because it is very much like a kind of stylized thing. Gordon Brown's standing. He's one of the only full body ones. Interesting. But then you get to the top and Liz Truss, because Rishi's isn't on yet. And Liz Truss is there, and it says, because it always says the year to the year. That's what it says. Underneath it says the Prime Minister, like 1817 to 1823 or whatever. And Liz Truss's obviously just says, what was the year? 2022? 22?
Maybe 23 potentially.
23? But yeah, 23 to 23 or whatever it was. Yeah. So
I'm just half expecting to see a picture of a lettuce there. Just,
but it's there, and it's like, oh God, she's on the wall. Come on, really?
Yeah,
Could we not admit that? Yeah, terrible. But it's interesting. You see them back in it. I guess it kind of puts a lot of things in perspective, and I think it's an important thing. The Prime Minister walks up those stairs a lot, and I imagine it's quite a reflective moment, for any Prime Minister to be like, oh yeah, this is I'm just a small fry. I'm like a caretaker in a long line of people who've been here. People you forget about, way back when.
Yeah. Well, while you've been jetting off, I've been holding things down regionally. You'd be glad to know there was the so I spent the weekend. In fact, actually, there's a couple of things to dissect from this weekend. Firstly, I think for a lot of the region, we're focusing on the Tyne and Wear derby, which for the Newcastle fans out there was a complete and utter disaster.
Didn't go well,
both on the pitch and off the pitch, I'd like to say, because we got beat 2-1. Newcastle, obviously, I'm a Newcastle fan, for those who aren't aware. Newcastle got beat 2-1, which is always a bit of a kicker. That means Sunderland did the double over us in the league this season. But no, my takeaway from it, right, was that, on pitch things to one side, the behaviour around the match, right, is very, very, I don't want to say symbolic, but very fitting of the times. And I feel like seeing some of the footage, I've actually got some of it I can pull up for those who are watching. Just a quick
I'll be playing it for the first time as well.
Some of the scenes around the stadium of, the amount of police that it takes to get people to and from these matches is incredible. The drain on the police force, it's a major event for them to plan, and it's a football match at the end of the day. And don't get me wrong, when I'm saying all this, I'm very passionate about football. I cared a lot. I was, amped up for the game. But some of the scenes, you've got people, Sunderland fans trying to get to the stadium. They're getting bottles thrown at them. There's people just,
I noticed that when I came through on the train, because I was going down on Sunday, and obviously as it was happening, and my train went through Newcastle Station, was stopped there. A lot of fans got off who were coming down from Berwick and from Scotland, and the Sunderland fans were all there at Central Station in like a big paddock. And is that what happens? Do they kind of march them up all together?
I should have teed up that footage, yeah. So what's really supposed to happen, and it's an organised event where they'll basically parade them down. To a certain extent, it's crazy to think that's what needs to happen. But the marching from the station all the way up in one go, so to make sure there's no breakaways and no fights and scuffles and all that sort of stuff. But I'll put this clip on now. There was quite a few things. There was like bottles were being thrown at the Sunderland team coach. And again, I'm saying as someone who, when we won the the Carabao Cup last year, I was there chanting, singing. I was at St James's Park, celebrating and fully behind the team. Loved it. Brilliant, right? But when I see stuff like this, just pull that. For those who can't see it, essentially, around the world, there's bombs being thrown, there's bottles being thrown. It's absolute pandemonium, and this is just one scene out of wider destruction sort of attack. And how do we move that? It just like for me, it made us reflect on like where we are now, and are we at this stage? And it made us look at what's going on with all the United Kingdom rallies and the anti-immigration protests and all this. Like, it feels like there's just a huge lack of respect for like our surroundings and our environment and like the police and all these different things. And in the same time, and I'm not sure if everybody's seen this, but there was a massive uproar about a public prayer event. It was a Muslim public prayer event. I think it was I think it was called
Trafalgar Square, yeah.
Trafalgar Square, and it was like this. Everyone's saying that this is a show of dominance and it's disrespectful, and a Christian country and all this sort of stuff. But then Newcastle fans are making a fool of themselves, smashing up outside the stadium, and I thought, where's the balance here?
No, it doesn't. I mean, that's the thing. I was in that. I was in Talk TV headquarters, right? Rupert Murdoch's headquarters and News UK to do a debate. My Julia Hartley Brewer slot, which I do quite often, but doing it in person with her this time. And while I was waiting, they were talking about it prior to me coming on. About the kind of prayers the Muslims. And it was just the language was just unbelievable that they were using. And like always with these shows, when I go on them. And you have to hear a little bit of the segment before yours. And obviously, I don't listen to them normally. And then you have to hear that. And you try not to get wound up about it because you need to go on and talk about your thing and make that case. Well, it's very difficult. But they were talking about, Trafalgar Square. They were like, there's empty churches they could be using for this, was their argument. Somebody's argument was there's empty church. Well, I'm sorry. Like, there's normally a massive, great Christmas tree for 3 months of the year in Trafalgar Square. Why is that? I'm an atheist. There's no difference to me whether somebody's on their knees praying for the end of Eid and an iftar than a Christmas tree being there. I understand Christmas trees aren't necessarily connected directly to the religious practice, but Christmas is a religious holiday. And I just don't understand why some people, it's so transparent for me. And, the second that you say, oh, is it because you got a problem with Muslims? Some of them will say no. And some of them are getting closer and closer to the point where they just admit that it is the fact they don't like Muslims.
100%, and they see it as an invasion and an attack on British culture. And I actually did a little video on it last week, and I found that every year they do. There's a Hindu event, there's a Sikh event. No problems with that. That's fine, but I don't know. I'm not a religious person, it's not my cup of tea. But if you want to live in a free society, in a free nation, in an independent nation, surely that also involves allowing people to practice whatever religion that they want, We're talking about attacks on culture, right? There's been a drama. There's been a massive drama, okay? Huge. This is causing real cultural division on the streets, right? So I'm pulling real stories from real people on this podcast, right?
That's what we want.
Cadbury's have caused a stir because apparently, and I've seen this on social media, that they've refused to put the word Easter on their Easter eggs. Okay, they've gone woke. They've gone fully woke, and obviously this is a real issue. Now I went to Morrison's and I had a look, and there's Easter plastered all over them. So my question is, why are people pretending? Why are people making up an issue about Easter eggs not being Eastery enough? What can be gained from that? And it's purely and simple. Just we are the victims. Christians are the victims in this country, and it's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's got Easter written all over them. But what I found, James, there's more to this story, right? There's more and more.
Has it got a hidden
this video on?
Has it got a hidden Easter egg?
Wow. I mean, we've got it. We're absolutely flown now. So I opened that Easter egg, and it turns out, actually, there is a problem with these Cadbury's Easter eggs.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the comments I was getting on my video is that it's owned by an American company now, which, a conversation for another day, perhaps.
Yeah,
But the
definitely.
quality of the chocolate is under attack. Cadbury's are filling their Easter egg chocolate with palm oil, right? Now,
Oh,
I'll confess, me and my wife have consumed a couple of Easter eggs a little bit early this year, and we both
great.
commented on the quality of the chocolate not being up to scratch, right? So people are
It,
boycotting Cadbury's
it's
Easter
not
eggs,
been,
and
well,
I stand with them. I stand with them.
it's
Solidarity.
it's not been, firstly, I have to say, it's not been Good Friday yet. So you're not allowed your eggs. So you shouldn't have done that. But look, I support your wrongs as well as I support your rights. So, I'll stand with you. But you're absolutely right. This rage bait, what gets me about it is when they have to invent these things to be angry about, right? They run out of things, like as if it's their fuel, right? It's the thing that fuels a lot of them. And if they don't have a thing every week to be upset about or angry about, then they just make something up. It was like the cat litter boxes in the schools. Do you remember? They were saying there's children identifying as cats now because of something to do with trans people. I don't know what the connection was. Apparently, they were saying kids are allowed to identify as cats, so there's litter boxes for them to use, and that's not real, and it's not real anyway. So, the second that you hear it, you just have to say to them, where, name the school, and they can't. And then it reminds me very much of the American, and it worries me a bit about this because, yes, it's ridiculous, and most people I think would recognize it's ridiculous. But in America, about 15 years ago, the big thing was they're trying to stop us saying Happy Christmas. It's Happy Holidays now. The Happy Holidays saga. It was mentioned on like The Simpsons, Family Guy, all these things, like South Park. Everyone took the mick out of it, but there was a lot of Americans saying like, you're not allowed to say Happy Christmas anymore. You're not allowed to say Bar Bar Black Sheep anymore. You're not allowed to say. I, to this day, have never found an example of someone actually proven evidence of that. Like, nobody I know has ever said that they have an issue with Happy Christmas or Merry Christmas. I say it. Nobody's ever had an issue with Bar Bar Black Sheep. They make it up to be angry about.
Yeah, I think you see this sort of thing all the time, right? And there's a couple of points, right? And one is that you'll often see a story, whether it's from the Daily Mail or GB News or whatever it is, and it's like, teacher has been sacked because he refused to use pronouns or something like that, right? And you think, right, okay, a teacher's been sacked. That part is probably true. In fact, it is true. The reason behind the person being sacked is 10, 15, 20 different things, examples of misconduct. One of them being refusing to engage on,
Mm-hmm.
pronouns and that sort of thing, right? But the story is always white working class person is being discriminated against for refusing to stick to woke ideology. And it's just exhausting, man. You see it all the time. And in the second bit, right, which is, in fact, I've actually had this conversation. I think it was with my parents, like a couple of weeks ago. And there's this thing where I feel as though, and if there's people in the comments who disagree with us, feel free to let me know. But I feel like the right, particularly the far right, GB News, Reform, they campaign and message around anecdotal evidence. So it's always anecdotes. There's never statistics to back up their argument. So, for example, teacher gets, child identifies as cat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, where's this happening? Show me the statistics. Is this actually a problem, or is this something that you've heard in the pub or in a taxi? It's the same, like, immigrants are eating cats and dogs or stealing swans from the park or whatever it is. All right, show me the data, because that's what we need to work off. Not and Nigel Farage actually referenced the fact that he heard a story from a taxi driver, and he was using that as part of his campaign.
Insane.
What are we doing?
It is mad because anecdotal stuff gets thrown out, like in a court of law, gets thrown out in most places because, like, that's everyone has an anecdote to back up whatever they want to say. Most people invent them to illustrate their point. That's what anecdotes are. And I do think it's fascinating though, because at the moment I'm seeing a shift when I debate the anti-immigration kind of brigade, because they're finding statistics, right? And a lot of these statistics, a lot of people won't realize, because it sounds impressive if you pull a statistic out in the middle of a conversation. And if you can make it sound like it's from somewhere authentic and you say, the Center for Migration Control, right? You say, well, the Center of Migration Control did a study, and they found that 99% of asylum seekers are eating children or something like that. And it's always a ridiculous statistic, but it's made to look like it's reasonable, and it's made to look like it's from a measured think tank. And then you look into the Center for Migration Control, right? And they're a think tank, which, by the way, to anybody who doesn't work around the endless stream of think tanks and groups being set up in Westminster, you can set up a think tank for £35, right? I could do one this afternoon. We could do one called the That's Class Institute, right? Maybe we should, right? And we could publish data, and then all of a sudden you've got data to quote from the That's Class Institute. It's very easy to do. But the Center for Migration Control was set up by a former reform activist who was still a supporter of reform, and it is clearly a reform think tank. This isn't new. It started with Ronald Reagan in the 80s. They set up think tanks a lot, anti-tax ones mainly, to talk down taxation in America. Thatcher copied it over here, and people at Tufton Street, people at all these other organizations and Conservative Party headquarters, a lot of them have worked in those kind of think tanks already. So, a lot of them, some of them are more credible than others, but do not believe it necessarily if you hear the data comes from a think tank.
And so you're telling me the Center for Migration Control is not an official source? Because it sounds very official, James.
It does. It sounds like it's the center for controlling migration, doesn't it?
Yes.
That's what it sounds like. But the thing is, they just set that up. They gave it a name and they registered it online for £35. So there you go.
Yeah. This is the thing, right? And that I've got something I really wanted to get to tonight, right? And it's all the same space. And I consume a lot of content, right? I'm online, short videos, even like long form YouTube stuff. That's where I watch a lot more of that than probably I do traditional TV, right?
Yeah.
In terms of like screen time. And I've seen a clip come up. He's quite a famous, on the right on the online space, super famous guy, friends with Tommy Robinson, this guy called Liam Tuff, right? And he's got a podcast. Sorry, he's got a podcast. He does he'll turn up to rallies and interview people and all that sort of stuff. Quite confrontational to try and get a response out of people who are on stand up to racism protests, and he's trying to get like a gotcha moment. But he's got this podcast, and I've listened to a few of them because I feel like it's interesting just to see what they're doing. But this clip came up today, and I couldn't quite believe what I was hearing. And it, to me, and I need to be careful what I say here because we're on a podcast. But this is proof that anybody can be on a podcast. Now, I'll put this on now.
There's something, just being devil's advocate, why is far right a bad thing? I'm not saying it's a good thing. Why is it a bad thing? It just means that you're politically to the right. If you think about the worst people in history, the Nazis weren't right. They were National Socialists. They would consider themselves left. The governments that have killed the most people have been communist, far left. So there's something.
Wow. James, reaction to the Nazi Party not being right?
Well, I like my history, Craig, and I've got a great book there on Joseph Goebbels behind me, right? And it's all about Goebbels and how he messaged for the Nazis and what he did and all the rest of it, right? In that book, and everyone knows this, who's looked at any semblance of history, you can look at a quick video online, you'd find the same thing, is that they were called the National Socialists as a troll to the left. It was a very obvious trolling thing to try and wind up that because they were attacking communists and they were, the threat of the left was what they used to get into power in Nazi Germany during the Weimar Republic. So that alone is just very incorrect and immediately refutable. But it's the fact that it's given some kind of credence. They put the music underneath it on the clips, and then you cut to Liam Tufts, who, listen, I could be professional. I'm not going to be, because I don't like him and I think he's vile. He looks like Phil Mitchell, and he's so angry all the time. He's this bald guy with these veins pulsating in his head because he's so angry about everything. And all he does is praise Tommy Robinson constantly. And I don't know if he's even friends with Tommy Robinson. I think Tommy Robinson probably thinks he's coming on too strong. But this guy, it cuts back to him looking thoughtful, you know? Yeah, good point, mate. Yeah, good. And that's all. That's all anyone sees. They see this unchallenged opinion, which is incorrect, factually incorrect. And then someone nodding along saying, yeah, good point, mate. And that's it. And then before you know it, they're repeating it down the social club next week.
Right, I'll be totally honest, James. Right, I mean, we're running we're calling it a political podcast. Yeah, politics and culture, whatever. But it's we talk about politics, don't we? So
we do.
I'm not an expert, right? I didn't go to university. Neither of us have been to university, actually, funnily enough. But I haven't got a political sciences degree. I've been picking this up through work, really, and starting to understand how the community I live in and communities just like mine are impacted by what's going on politically.
Yeah.
I know that the Nazi Party were not left-wing. They are ultra-nationalist, self-identified fascist party, which is the definition of being far-right, okay? Now,
in the 30s,
it is a benchmark to be
30s,
going on to a podcast. And I mean, I don't think that guy should be given a vote, potentially. I think, never mind going on a podcast.
Because in the 30s, they called themselves fascists. That wasn't an insult like it is today. It's only an insult because of what fascism led to, right? It's like now we use that term rightly so, and we recognize what it is. But it was an identifier. It was like, oh, I'm a fascist. Like, I recognize that. And we haven't seen that for the past 80 years because we defeated them in basically every European country. And it took the whole world to do it. And we dragged them out of power. Some of them ran off to South America, but most of them were gone, we thought. And then now you've got kids in America on Jubilee debate videos, that one with Mehdi Hassan comes to mind, saying, I am a fascist. I'm proud to be a fascist.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, James, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what his numbers are that he's getting on this podcast, but we're talking thousands, tens of thousands, probably. I don't know if he's in the hundreds. I'm not sure. But just to be clear, a lot of people are watching this and absorbing this stuff. And it's again, it's quite ironic that I'm sat here saying anyone can be on a podcast, right? But
the thing is,
I like to think you have a certain bit of responsibility not to just, just talk pure nonsense.
You've already broken that trend of men, and I did a Substack when we launched this, didn't I? Saying another 2 white men have started a podcast, because it's funny because, but we do have a duty to call it out because so many of them are just nonsense, and they present their views with utter confidence, and that's the thing that normally gets it across the line for people and convinces people there's some credibility to it. You've already just said they're undermining your own self. You're like, well, I'm not an expert. Like that's all you need to do when you say something or talk about something. But even then, you are a million times more informed than that. I know that you're doing yourself down when you shouldn't be, but these people, it's time and time again. I say it with friends, say it with family, say it with whoever, that the people who have the confidence and have bags of confidence are often the people who don't have the ability to back it up. And unfortunately, they're the ones who scream the loudest and shout the loudest. Donald Trump being the prime example of that.
I mean, we're 35 minutes in, and we managed to get that far without mentioning the big Don.
I know. I'm sorry. I broke that. I know.
No. To be honest, I mean,
inevitable.
It is inevitable. And I think talking about how politics impacts, communities just like ours. I mean, we haven't actually put this down for the discussion this evening, but I mean, I've seen something today. I don't know if people have actually seen his announcement in all capital letters on his own social media platform, Truth Social, which is fantastic. That was it yesterday morning. Something about him not bombing Iran's energy infrastructure anymore, which is a big deal, right? It is obviously that escalation would be catastrophic, right? And it's my opinion, and I know we've discussed this every week so far, but the sooner that war ends, the better for everybody. It's already gone on too far. Totally. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. That would be great if it just stopped, right? But him announcing that very quickly affected the markets. I think something that people need to understand is that when the president, despite it being Donald Trump, and not being able to trust a word that he says, the markets listen to what Donald Trump has to say.
Yeah.
And forgive me, I can't remember the exact numbers, but there were, before this announcement of him having base, essentially it was like a mini ceasefire announcement, and that, you know, Iran were at the table with America. Great, fantastic. Donald Trump, the peacemaker, as he likes to call himself, or the president of peace. There was a large amount of trading going on to the.
There was one trade in particular, 1.5 billion. That was the.
Is that what it was?
One trade, $1.5 billion that then made $500 million.
On the oil prices dropping, which obviously did happen off the back of Trump's announcement.
Mm-hmm.
So the question being, who was Donald Trump talking to before he's making these decisions?
Yeah.
And because it was a massive anomaly, that sort of investment, when a market's so volatile in the way it is, right? That is quite clearly, to me, insider trading.
Yes.
Now, I don't know what your thought is on that, James, but
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a pattern with these lot, and people and places are starting to investigate these trades. There was a woman who, I cannot remember her name, but she was the head of the CDC, I think, which regulates the trading market, right? And is meant to investigate any dodgy trades. She announced that she was going to be looking into trades connected to the Trump family, and she's now resigned. Just out of the blue. She's been told, you know, whatever she's been told, and then she's gone because she was looking at the Trump family and the way that they're enriching themselves through this. But speculation is a key thing, you know. I mean, he knew what he was going to do. By the way, I do not think it's like a deliberate strategy. Like, some people think it's like, you know, the conspiracy is that, like, the war is for that purpose, to enrich him. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just opportunistic, right? I think he's an idiot. I think he's terrified. I think he is absolutely terrified of where he's at right now, because he didn't think that the oil markets all of a sudden, you know, the people who were the most influential in the world, right, would be like, you need to end this. You need to stop this. But you need to realize that, like, you have messed this up and that you need to get an off-ramp very quickly, and the Iranian government is not going to give it to you. They're not going to concede in any way, shape, or form. So he's had to try and find a way to back down. But in the meantime, I think it's as simple as whoever they are, their pals, their family members, whatever, they're chatting and they're saying, throw some money at that, by the way. Do it tonight. You know, we're going to do it tomorrow. And they're just lazy with it. And it's going to be so obvious. I think a lot of it will come to light in the end. That'll be the stuff that the Democrats are very comfortable to go on if they win the midterms, because they'll be able to, once you have control of the House, right, they'll be able to launch investigations again. So I think there'll be investigations into stuff like that. And I think the second part of his term in office this time around could just be bogged down by investigations into corruption, especially of this kind of financial kind.
James, honestly, we are playing two different games. Like, you know, that sort of thing going on. Meanwhile, you know, me and my wife have just gone through the remortgaging process, and thinking, I hope we can get this done before the mortgage rates go through the roof, and all these different bits and pieces. Meanwhile, Trump and his pals are making millions, hundreds of millions of trades like that, because they know fine well what the markets are going to do. And it's like that, you know, when you talk about sort of injustices and how, you know, it's like I said, it's just two completely different games. But what I wonder, right, and I actually was thinking this today, I might be giving Donald Trump way too much credit here.
Mm-hmm.
We all think he's very unpredictable. Well, we don't think he is. He's very, very unpredictable. And he says all sorts of nonsense. He changes his mind back and forth, back and forth. Now, is there method to the madness? Is there method to this madness where he, like, because it just came off the back of this insider trade and stuff. I thought, he impacts markets a lot in the things that he says and the chaos that he creates.
Yeah.
Now, I wonder how often this is happening. And I wonder if he's just coming out and making statements. I don't believe that all of them will be. I do think he's chaotic in just, you know, the way he operates. But I just wonder if some of that chaos is designed to feed that sort of insider trading.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I think that people should look into around this is a particular platform called Polymarket. And Polymarket allows you through crypto. A lot of this is tied to crypto. And Donald Trump, he wasn't really a crypto person for many years. Donald Trump was, your bricks and mortar, hotels, all that stuff that he used to bankrupt. He eventually found a good business model of suing people, right? Made a lot of money suing people over the years. His businesses would always tank, and then he would sue people normally about the tanking business and then make money back, right? So he's not averse to making money in ways like that, right? I looked at Polymarket earlier because what it allows you to do is place a bet on anything. And if someone says, I'll take that bet, right? If you say, I think it's going to rain tomorrow, and it's not forecast to rain, and I bet you this amount, right? It's speculation on that front, and it's all done in cryptocurrency. Now, what did Donald Trump launch? At the time of his election, and this new crypto coin, all this stuff. Like, why has he involved himself in crypto? And then Polymarket is now doing. I'm looking here on Polymarket right now, and you can go to the politics tab immediately. I'm not, by the way, suggesting anybody should waste their money doing this at all. And also, I think you have to trade in crypto to do it anyway. But looking at, will Israel launch a major ground offensive in Lebanon by March 31st? There is $24 million in that bet right now. There's 451 million being gambled on the presidential election result for 2028 already. And you can do it on anything. Will Donald Trump say the word trans in the next 48 hours?
Is this where, because I think I've seen a clip of this where is it Palm Bondi, like a speech will go on for 15 minutes and 1 second, and they literally come off the stage precisely when they need to for the tech to come in.
At court, I don't normally dabble when things feel conspiracy-ish, but for me, this is like, these people are motivated by money entirely. It's what drives Donald Trump. And they've created markets where you can bet about anything. Right now in the politics predictions and odds, there's 1,647 open markets that you can vote in, JD Vance has an 18% chance of winning the next presidential election. These things are changing constantly. How long will it take for Netanyahu to resign? Elon Musk's tweets March 20th to March 27th. Can you predict what words he'll say? Now, we know people like Elon Musk, speculate all the time. And the fact that bid, again, I have to clarify for legal reasons, I have no evidence to suggest anyone I know or can name is involved in any of these speculations. But who has $1.5 billion to throw at a bet? Nobody risks that, firstly, if you've got it. You know that you're going to get the payout and you're going to get the result that you want. But also, who has a connection with that much money to the White House? I know of one person, and I know of several others, when you are the billionaire's president, when you serve the billionaires and you're an oligarch, this is the new kind of oligarchy that we're seeing.
Well, it's interesting that you say it's the billionaire's president, because I think what's going on in Iran, there's probably some unhappy billionaires, potentially.
I think so.
And I think what we're seeing is Trump is regretting what he's done. I don't think there's a way out of this where, despite how should we say sociopathic Donald Trump is, that he can think that this has gone well. And I've seen a couple of things where he's already blaming Pete Hegseth, who's what do they call him? The Minister of War?
It used to be the Secretary of State for Defense. It used to be the Secretary for Defense, but now they've renamed it the Secretary of War.
And this is the President of Peace. But anyway, already sort of trying to shift the blame onto this Pete Hegseth, saying that it was his idea, he was the one who came up with it, which is obviously a sign that Donald Trump is already regretting it. But then, fresh off the back of this these negotiations, which whether they happened or not, who knows? Iran seem to think that they haven't really been in discussion to stop any back and forth between them and Israel. Now, Donald Trump had this interview. I'll play it and react to it.
What about the Strait of Hormuz? Who's going to be in control of that?
That'll be opened very soon if this works.
How soon? And who's in control of it? Will Iran still be able to control the flow of oil?
Be jointly controlled.
By who?
Maybe me. Maybe me.
You want the United States to be in
Me
control
and the Ayatollah, whoever the Ayatollah is, whoever the next Ayatollah. Look, and there'll also be a form of a very serious form of a regime change. Now, in all fairness, everybody's been killed from the regime. There's automatically a regime change. But we're dealing with some people that I find to be very reasonable, very solid. The people within know who they are. They're very respected. And maybe one of them will be exactly what we're looking for.
Mate, I mean, that is just astounding. I mean, how many times do you think one of these bets on Polymarket is how many times can he contradict himself in a minute? Because, if so, you'd win a load of money on that. That's just, I mean, none of it made any sense. What I heard was we've killed everyone in the regime, but we're dealing with the regime. But also, there's some really serious people who are really well respected that we're dealing with. But we're going to change the regime. But also, I'll work with the Ayatollah.
Well, and so my immediate question is, right, let's say, in some sort of miracle, Iran decide, yeah, we've had enough. Because let's be honest, Iran have got all the cards in their hands right now. They've got a stranglehold over all of the oil that feeds the world's economy, right? I think that's probably the easiest way of saying it. For people who aren't really massively in tune, and I totally understand that because it's a complicated situation. But essentially, Iran have got a stranglehold on the world because they're controlling the oil, right? So to a certain extent, they're saying, well, let's do it. Let's go at it. Donald Trump seems to have been the one to have blinked first and said, okay, let's back this down now because it's starting to hurt. But if it did stop, let's say tomorrow we wake up, it's all finished, everyone's settling down. My question to you, James, is what has Donald Trump gained?
Very good question. Are we talking about the Epstein files anymore?
Long pause.
Anyone remember the Epstein files?
Yeah,
because we're not talking about them. That's the only thing I can think that he's benefited. Don't think that's the primary reason for the war, but yeah, there's been nothing to gain from it. But again, I don't think his actions often even make sense for his own, to benefit him. I mean, before the midterms, it made no sense to send US personnel into a situation where they would die, So he needs the off ramp. He'll take it however he can get it. I think this idea that talks are happening, then Iran says that they're not happening. I don't want to believe the Iranian regime because, they're liars and they're scumbags. But at the same time, so is he. So who do you believe in this? Like, is there a conversation happening? Meanwhile, Israel are doing, they're just getting what they want. They're just running rampant with whatever they want. People aren't even talking about Gaza anymore in the mainstream media. There's some journalists working very hard to keep Gaza in the focus, but a lot of people are just like, they haven't got scope. They haven't got bandwidth for Gaza anymore. Ukraine barely gets a mention, and just here on the Polymarket thing, I can put 75 British pounds onto a bet. Will Israel launch a major ground offensive in Lebanon by the 31st of March? If I say no to that, they won't, I would win £50,000. So I don't know what on earth this is, how it's operating. Obviously, it's in crypto, but like the fact that someone has knowledge that they're going to, obviously, because otherwise the odds wouldn't be that crazy if it was a no. So I just don't. I don't understand any of this. I think a lot of the world, its financial institutions, are just spiraling out of control, and I think that comes because it's top down. I think it comes from the fact that everybody looks to what is essentially the boss of the Western world, right? The President of the United States. They look to that office and what they see is a snake oil salesman in decline in health who is just enriching his family and, you know, destroying the world while doing it. And they think, oh, I'll have a bit of that. Why? I'll do whatever I want. You know, why not?
I think what he'll claim, I think the claim from Donald Trump and the American administration will be that they are further away from a nuclear weapon than what they would have been. Now, they said that they'd already destroyed those capabilities. What was it, the back end of last year?
Yeah. 8 months ago.
From what I can gather, Israel have been claiming that they are weeks away from a nuclear weapon for what seems like decades. So who knows? Whatever. But to me, I think, would that Iranian regime be more motivated now to try and get themselves a nuclear weapon? Who knows? I mean, after what's happened at the start of this year, you would probably, if I was going to go on Polymarket and put a bet on it, I would probably bet yes, they would. So yeah, and obviously everything, all those decisions that I've been making, like I always like to go back to, are affecting people like us, you know, at the bottom end of it. But actually, to put a little bit of a positive spin on it, you know, because, well, it's hard to put a positive spin on what's going on in Iran, but there's a positive segue that can be taken, right? And, you know, obviously gas prices are being affected. I think what we've seen is that the oil and gas market is very, very fragile. But a bit of news that came out today, right, which I want to just sort of bring up quickly, is that I think it's from 2028, so a couple of years away, all houses that are built in the UK will have to be built with solar panels on them.
Yeah.
And a heat pump or connected to a heat network. So basically that means not being connected to the gas grid. You've either got a heat pump in your house or connected to a network of heat, essentially, which I'll not get into the details of, but like, obviously for climate and for your energy bills, good bit of news, you know. So it's good to see us going in that direction. I think it's come way later than what it should have, you know. We're sort of living in
we're catching up, right?
Bit. But no, a good bit of news there, James. So yeah,
I think that's brilliant. It's long been talked about. I mean, God, I remember ground source heat pumps were being talked about, you know, being built in the new houses 2016. So, like, you know, the fact that we're on 10 years later and it's now policy, that's great. But, like, yeah, there's a lot to do, but it is good news. My worry is that how Reform seem to be talking about net zero stuff, everything Ed Miliband does. And I'll tell you now, when I was in London and I got a few taxis, and they would talk politics to you, or they would say, you know, I had one guy recognizes when I came straight off Talk TV, he'd been listening to it. He'd been listening to Talk on the radio. So we had a good chat. Not my politics, not a guy I agreed with, but we had a friendly chat nonetheless. His obsession with Ed Miliband was very strong, and a lot of people are the same, and it seems to be because of the net zero stuff. You know, this energy language that you're hearing from the likes of Farage when there's no solution offered. It's very similar to what we've just seen Donald Trump do. I believe he's just paid EDF. I don't know if you'd seen this, but he's paid EDF over $1 billion in a settlement to not build 2 wind turbines off the east coast of the US. They were going to build these wind turbines off the east coast, and he doesn't want them that much that he has paid the company $1 billion taxpayers' money to not have renewable energy, and instead to divert what they were going to put into the wind turbines into oil and gas. Staggering.
It's so hard to, I mean, it's such a difficult conversation, right? And because the problem that we've got, right, is that there's a lot of jobs at stake in oil and gas, right, which is completely a valid argument to have, and that we need to make sure that those workers in oil and gas have got some security and have got a route to transition into what would be green jobs and in jobs in clean energy, right? But the important thing for me, as a trade unionist as well, I've got to say, I care about jobs. You know, just as much as I care about climate in the future for my daughter. You know,
it's hand in hand,
to grow
isn't
in a world that we've got jobs, but we can have both of those things. We can have clean air outside and not have smoke blasting around, and we can have jobs. And that's one of the things that in my job I'm campaigning for, is for us to invest in supply chains for offshore wind, right? Because we've seen the prices of offshore wind is getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and it's working, right? We're producing a lot of our electricity, homegrown electricity, not relying on what's going on in Iran. It's being made in the North Sea, and I say pumped it, but it's being distributed across the UK, right?
Yeah.
But the jobs can come with it as well. But at the moment, all of the wind turbines that are being built in the North Sea, the majority of the parts are being built everywhere else but the UK,
Yeah.
you know?
And they just
So
bring
those
them and
jobs
connect
exist
them.
now. Yeah, those jobs exist now. What we need to be doing is making sure that we're creating the jobs by investing in these sites that'll produce wind turbine blades, produce basically the foundations and the big steel structures that hold the blades, you know, they're called monopiles. But that's where the focus should be. So I think what Ed Miliband's doing is trying to focus on that. But the conversation, I think that there needs to be real conversations about what we do with the workers in not just in the North Sea, but also in the oil and gas supply chain onshore. So in the oil refineries and all this, because we're talking about thousands, tens of thousands of workers, right? That need a steady income and we can't have a repeat of what happened in the coal industry, basically.
No,
because we've seen the devastation of that. So yeah. No. I mean, maybe that's a conversation that we dive into a bit deeper one week, you know, and talk about
we should.
oil and gas a bit more.
Yeah,
you know, maybe
it'd be good for us to get a
yeah.
guest on from, you know, because I know a lot of people have talked about this green industrial revolution and they've done the work on it and stuff as well. But you know, people who talk about, you know, there's still a lot of climate skepticism out there. People like Farage, people like Richard Tice, and we know it's because they have vested interests. You know, it doesn't come from a genuine place. But one thing that to segue onto, because I know we're coming up to our hour, talking about the likes of Farage and Tice. We did have a good discussion last week about masculinity, didn't we? About and of the toxic variety. You have to watch the Manosphere. It'll be interesting if anybody watched it after we were talking about it. It came up on my cross question panel last night. We were talking about, you know, the documentary and stuff, and I think most people were shocked. But as we said, we were shocked but not surprised. I responded to a challenge of yours, actually, Craig, you know, which you set me, which was we had a little discussion about who is an example of positive masculinity, because we know the examples of toxic masculinity, right? We see it everywhere. It's awful. We know who the main culprits are, the Andrew Tates of the world, but we don't have to talk about them all the time because they're sad and pathetic. So we thought we could talk about some of the positive examples of masculinity. And you set me a task of finding, I think, 3 examples.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would have loved to have brought some more to the table as well. But do you know what the thing is? Just before you do it, James, I think, like, I'm glad to say that there's a lot of males who I know personally who display like, you know, more often than not, people are displaying in real life, not these people like HS TikToky, you know, like people in my family who are genuine role models, you know, and great parents and brothers, and you know, and don't adhere to that nonsense that's online. And it's a shame that isn't more visible, or more visible than what these streamers are. But yeah, so I just that's my contribution to this, is just a nod to all of the
great point.
A nod to the good dads out there. One of them.
Love that. Really good example of, you know, the people in your own life who you should celebrate and uplift as well as examples. But I've got my 3. Who should I start with? Let's see. I'll go top to bottom. I've got a first example's quite a specific one. I've chosen Andrew Garfield, right? And the reason why I've chosen Andrew Garfield, I think he comes across as quite a good egg, and he comes across as quite a good example of confident and positive masculinity. He's not afraid to be vulnerable. I watched an incredible interview with him some years ago now, I think. It might have been with Stephen Colbert, where he cried about, you know, he talked about his mum. He lost his mum, and he lost his mum around the same time I lost mine. And it just really struck a note with me, the way he talked about grief as a journey, how he loved her, how he still loves her, and how he feels that. And it was just great to see a display of vulnerability, but not apologetic vulnerability. You know, he wasn't like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm crying, oh, I'm sorry. He was just confident with it, and he said, I love my mum, I miss my mum, this is what was amazing about her. And I think she did a really good job of raising him by the looks of it. and it reminded me very much of the bond with my own mother. So I think Andrew Garfield is a good. And he was a Spider-Man as well, which listen. Not everyone gets to be Spider-Man, so that's pretty cool.
And Spider-Man's a lot of young, not just young men, but young women as well, a role model for far and wide. Although I wouldn't want to see kids trying to do some of Spidey's moves, but you know,
you're getting your disclaimer in there before someone comes back with a "you made my child break their wrist." You know, the next one I've got, Mr. Steve Irwin. I remember watching Crocodile Hunter as a kid. I think Steve Irwin's joy, I think, is the reason why I picked him. I think he's just has this abundance of joy, very much shared by his kids now. I know Robert Irwin's a big, kind of big advocate of carrying on his father's work. And yeah, exactly. And a good dancer as well. I think he was on one of those the American version of Strictly. And Steve Irwin, just his love of animals, his love of the planet. Obviously, that's already a green flag. But I think the way that he talks about family and the way he talks about expressing love and joy, again, a man not afraid to put his emotions at the forefront, but no less masculine for doing so. And you could tell that he wouldn't be bothered by things. Do you know what I mean? Like, people get bothered by criticisms or whatever. You know, you couldn't pin him down with that. He was somebody who was doing what he loves because he knew it was right.
Bearing in mind, this man can probably handle himself. I mean, he's tackling crocodiles.
Exactly. Yeah, crikey. Yeah, there's no bigger display of like strength. And you could imagine, I mean, you know, we think about shows like Tiger King and all the rest of it, right? Like, there could be a lot of toxicity in that kind of world of big animals and taking them on and stuff, but he didn't feel the need to be. And I think not needing to flex is one of the biggest flexes. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
And then finally, are you ready? Give me a drum roll. Where are we for my final one? Here we go. It is none other than Mr. Harrison Ford. Yeah.
Wow.
Listen, Indiana Jones, Han Solo.
I'm going to say, I think Han Solo first, I think.
You think for you? Is that, you go and Star Wars first?
Yeah.
See, and now he's in a show, I don't know if anyone will have seen it, called Shrinking. It's excellent. It's great. He plays a therapist in that, and his character has Parkinson's. And the way that he's shown that and the way that he's highlighted it, and they had Michael J. Fox on the show, you know, who is obviously lives with Parkinson's, and he's been hugely celebratory of Harrison Ford's display. Not only is Harrison Ford funny and he comes out and fights and stands with causes that he should, and advocates for people. You know, this is a guy who spends time. He used to spend time flying his helicopter and his plane around, helping fight wildfires and rescue people and stuff like that as a volunteer when he didn't need to. His background's in carpentry. Before he was an actor, he was a carpenter on film sets. That's how he got into it. Quite late, I think. I think he booked the Star Wars gig quite late, just from being a carpenter on a film set. And then, of course, now in his older age, I think he's showing us all how to do it gracefully. You know, how to grow old gracefully. He's not that example of, like, you know, the cliche bitter old man or the angry grump. You know, he plays the grump and he plays the curmudgeon, but in a really kind of I don't know. It's obviously a facade that he then likes to put cracks in himself and show that, like, he actually has this deep sensitivity. And I think his portrayal of somebody in older age who is living with an illness and living with a disease, that's the ultimate vulnerability. People don't like to think about chronic illness until it happens to them. And then to be someone who can show that and show that the vulnerable journey of it, I think it's incredible. So I would put him on he's the gold medal. I think I'd give Steve the silver and Andrew no less in his positive masculinity, but he gets the bronze. They're all on the podium together for me.
4 strong displays of positive masculinity, though, I'd say there, James. And I think that was great. Thanks for doing that. I think what would be nice, I think maybe every week we could not necessarily go into positive masculinity because but I think maybe just try and end on a positive note, because I think
we
that was
could
quite
do something of the week, couldn't we? Like, we could do a hero of the week, or someone that we want to shine a bit of light on, maybe.
Well, you know what would be lovely, James? because I'm going to sign off now. But I think if people listening, whether you're on Spotify, on YouTube, or whatever you are, drop a message. If there's anybody in particular who you think deserves a shout for putting a little bit of positivity in the world, that would be a nice little suggestion. And we could discuss it. And I think, every week we can sign off. Because let's be realistic, the world of politics is more often than not a pretty brutal one, We'll try and feed some positivity in when we can. But finish on a positive note. Monday nights, people can go to bed with a smile on their face, having watched that class. And I wanted to say, that's going to be me tonight, because I've had a lovely, lovely time. Thank you for the people dropping a couple of comments into the chat there. Very nice to see people taking part. And thanks again. And I will see you next week, everybody.
See you next week. And thank you, Craig. It's been great. And get them sent in. Star of the week, I think we could do. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Kind of used to do it at school, didn't you? Big gold star, we'll get some. And we'll do our star of the week every week so we can finish on a positive note. But thank you, Craig. And thank you, everyone, for listening.